Once you are a member of NATO, you are compelled to take part in foreign conflicts. So, let me give you an example. The conflict, the war in Afghanistan between the West, the NATO, the United States, and the Taliban, which was going on for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know if your Bulgarian troops took part in this war, but take a look at the map where Bulgaria is and where Afghanistan is. Does Bulgarian state has any interests in Afghanistan? I don't think so. However, because you are a member of NATO, you had to send your troops, your soldiers, your officers, to assist the NATO efforts to put down the Taliban. The same happened with the Libya. When France tried to remove Muammar Gaddafi, they began this operation, the Closed Skies, and they began to target the Libyan army. But all the other members of the NATO had to take part in this conflict. However, it was a sole French initiative of President Sarkozy.
Yes.
Most of the European countries didn't even know where the Libya is on the map. However, they had to take part. Luckily, I think there was not much casualties between the European soldiers. However, you have to take into attention that you're gonna have to take part in all future conflicts where NATO will be involved. So this is three elements which you have to take into consideration. Loss of sovereignty. You are opening your country to the first strike in case you put AMDs on your territory.
And we will, unfortunately.
And you have to send your soldiers to foreign conflicts where you have no interests whatsoever. There is one more point. NATO is anti-Russian alliance. So whether you prefer to align or to maintain good relations with Russia, maybe traditionally or culturally or historically, you already have no choice. Once you become a NATO member, NATO is anti-Russian alliance, you become actually a foe of Russia. You become its competitor, to say the least, but in case a major conflict unfolds between Russian forces and NATO, you actually become its enemy, whether you want it or not. So, and here we're coming back to the loss of sovereignty. You are not a sovereign country no longer once you have your foreign bases on your territory. This was one of the demands of Russian President Vladimir Putin before the war with Ukraine. He told Viktor Yanukovych and then he told Poroshenko, okay, you want to become a member of the EU? We let you, no problem. Just we ask you not to become a NATO member and not to put foreign forces on your territory. This apparently they could not do. Now today we are closing to the situation, approaching situation where the clash between NATO forces and the Russian forces is very real. Nobody wants the war in conventional way. This is why a few weeks ago Vladimir Putin told, okay, I'm putting the nuclear option on the table, because he said it because he knows that Russian resources are very limited. The war in Ukraine is more than 10 years now, and it's bleeding Russia white because they spend over and over again more and more resources. The only option which is left for Russia is nuclear, tactical, maybe not strategic, but tactical weapons, and Russia was compelled to put this option on table. So in this situation, you have to pay attention that once you are a member of NATO, you are putting your country in front against potential conflict with Russia. And because today this is not a conventional conflict like in the 20th century, this is a hybrid warfare, which includes information, pressure, psychological pressure. You know, I think the Russian citizens are not allowed to enter Bulgaria. I heard that the border control is so it's a psychological warfare against Russia. Information is a media. This is an informational warfare. It's also a part of hybrid warfare. You have
everything that is coming from Russia. This is a disinformation, right? Like even our conversation right now for the official medias will be a disinformation.
Well, I'm not. Probably your channel is, but I'm just as a scientist. I'm using the facts on the ground. What is going on? I don't know whether it's good or bad to not to allow Russians enter Bulgaria, but this is definitely a part of a hybrid warfare. It's a psychological pressure on the Russians, and Bulgaria is being used as a tool in this war between United States and Russia, between global West and global East.
How important is Bulgarian part of this conflict right now? We are like in the middle on the border. Not only military, but politically, even the politics behind the curtains.
Bulgaria became the focal point of this conflict once President of Turkey Erdogan came to power. Why? Because before Erdogan was the president of Turkey, Turkey was considered as a focal point between three continents: Europe, Eurasia, and Middle East. After Erdogan became president of Turkey, he chose side. He chose the side of the Middle East. He gradually Islamized his country. Something that Ataturk, the great leader of Turkey, was against. He even promoted many laws against Islamization of Turkey. What Erdogan is doing is actually it can be considered as an anti-constitutional activity. Once he began to Islamize Turkey, he already chose a side. He chose the side of the Islamic civilization. He chose the side of the Islamic world. He chose the side to be part of Middle East. Who is the next between Europe and Turkey? Bulgaria. Now your country is the focal point, the point of connection between Europe, Middle East, because Turkey is now, as I explained, it's part of the Middle East, and Eurasia. Besides this, you are also the biggest country and the most central country of the Balkans. Unfortunately, your leadership either doesn't understand the geostrategic importance of Bulgaria, or someone doesn't let it understand that Bulgaria has today, in this 21st century global geopolitical game, one of the most central points and roles in this developing tension between the global West, again, Bulgaria, between the rivalry between the global West and global East. You are in the middle of this global geopolitical tension, which can be easily transformed into conflict, because, I repeat, Turkey already chose its side, and now you replaced Turkey. However, you don't have the enough essential resources to play this role. In order to play this role, you have to stay sovereign, independent, and neutral. In order to stay sovereign, independent, and neutral, you have to have first a strong leadership, a leadership with the will to act. Second, you have to have your own strong army, not to be part of NATO army, but to have your own sovereign, independent army, which takes time to build, times that you don't have. And because once you begin, you're already a member of NATO, once you begin rebuilding, I call it rebuilding because during the Soviet times, during the Cold War, Bulgaria, especially after the Second World War, had a strong army. Now you have to rebuild your army, your sovereign, independent national military forces, but nobody will let you do it because you're already part of NATO. In order to build your army, you have to purchase weaponry, to develop your own weapons. You have to have a strong research, R&D, research and development within the military field. And in order to have this, you have to have a strong industrial infrastructure, which you don't have. Following the collapse of the socialist bloc, your industry, especially military industry, is only, I call it, exists on inertia, on power of inertia. You don't build anything new, you only use what is left from the socialist bloc. And this R&D, research and development, is one of the most important points, most important resources for any country today. Because this is what will let you to remain, again, sovereign and independent. Once you don't have this infrastructure, you will have to use someone other's infrastructure. You have to purchase weapons from other countries, mostly from United States. And this is a loss of sovereignty again. If you don't have your own strong army, you have to rely on someone else.
In the beginning of the conversation, the first part, you told me that we need to choose a side, but obviously we are not allowed to choose a side. Based on everything that you have explained so far. Okay, as the end of the conversation, I mean, I don't want to say it's a dark conversation, but too many facts and too many painful facts, especially for me as a Bulgarian at the moment, and for me as a European also. But as a scientist, based on those facts, what do you think about the situation in Ukraine? You said that Russia is bleeding over the last decade, and obviously this conflict over there won't last forever. Something will happen. Based on everything that you know, right now Kharkov, as far as I know, is very close to fall down. Is it true? And will this change anything, or what do we need to expect there?
The situation in which Ukraine is now is very tragic. And first and foremost, for the Ukrainian people, not for the politicians. Ukraine has been continuously destroyed, and the most element of country is its infrastructure, which includes social institutions, transportation, water supply, energy supply, industry. In order to remain sovereign and independent, you have to have a strong industry. You have to have a strong army. The Ukrainian army is almost destroyed. The Ukrainian infrastructure is almost destroyed. And Ukrainian industry also almost destroyed. We saw for the last 10 years how factory after factory are being destroyed. Azovstal is one example, a huge factory which was built during the Soviet Union, which was actually capable of production any kind of
Steel material.
not only steel, but any kind of elements for military and for the citizens, for the nation. It had huge potential and it had huge infrastructure basis, but it was totally destroyed. And these kind of factories are tens, if not more, which were destroyed in Ukraine. To rebuild such infrastructure will take decades. Now, army, infrastructure, factories, industry. The next is social institutions, education, schools, hospitals, universities. This is social institutions, social infrastructure, which is also being destroyed. And Ukraine lost millions of its citizens as refugees, which ran away from Ukraine. Human is also a resource. So the loss of all these resources is almost impossible to replace or to rebuild or to regain. Today, the question is not who will win or who will lose. Today, I think, in my opinion, the question must be who will rebuild Ukraine after the war. For me, from my point of view, it's already not so important if the victory will be on the side of the West, the Europe, or Russia. The question is what will be the future after the war. The situation is the same as we have in Israel with the war with Gaza. The main question now is what will be after the war, the day after. Who will manage the Gaza? Who will rebuild the Gaza? Who will direct or who will manage Gaza and its people? I think the same questions you can apply towards Ukraine. Who will rebuild Ukraine? Who will manage? What kind of government will be in Ukraine after the war? Now, this is the main question, because more or less from the tactical point of view, on the ground, we see that Ukraine slowly losing its territories, beginning from Crimea, from Donbass, some regions of Donbass. Now we are speaking about Kharkov. What is after Kharkov? Kiev. There after Kiev is Lvov. So, in my opinion, the worst case scenario for Ukraine is absolute disintegration of Ukrainian state. Probably the western territories might go under Poland or Romania. The Crimea is already part of Russia. Donetsk and Lugansk, probably with high probability, will also be under Russian control. What we have left from Ukraine? Only the central region.
So there won't be, perhaps this possibility, won't be any Ukraine, or it will be a very small country?
Allow me to explain something also very important considering this 21st century. There is a pattern of disappearance of whole countries. This is a pattern of 21st century, which began from Soviet Union. Soviet Union disappeared. Nobody would believe that such an empire, Soviet state, can disappear. Yugoslavia disappeared. Czechoslovakia disappeared. So when you consider, can a state actually disappear? The answer is yes. The same with Israel. I continuously say my opinion about the future of Israel and the future of the Middle East. I often call it post-Israel Middle East, because Israel in current situation, once a Palestinian state is declared, once Palestinians receive the full rights of existence, all the human rights, Israel might no longer be state only for Jews. In this case, Israel as a Jewish state will also disappear, and it will transform into one more Middle Eastern state in which not only the Jews would be allowed to live, but also Christians, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, Jews, and all the other nations of the Middle East. Few years ago, this scenario would sound impossible, but when we look back from the recent history, the collapse of the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, state actually can collapse. And if we speak about Ukraine, absolutely, it can also collapse, and it can also cease to exist. When I say collapse or cease to exist, it doesn't have to be to happen necessarily only in a military way, not by defeat, but by transformation. Yugoslavia had a war, but it was not a major regional war. It was a local chain of conflicts, but Yugoslavia was only disintegrated, but most of the states of former Yugoslavia stay as they are. The same with Czechoslovakia. It was one and the same country. Now we have two different countries, but they stay the same. They survived. The same with Israel. When I speak about the end of Israel, I don't mean that it will suffer a defeat militarily, because it is very hard to defeat Israel. However, it can transform as the Soviet Union has transformed without a major war. It only collapsed, as many say, without even one bullet fired. But the whole empire ceased to exist. If Soviet Union ceased to exist, what can happen with Israel, a small country, or Ukraine? It can also cease to exist by transformation into something else. And I think, in my opinion, it will lose more territories, because it's already lost some of its territories. And after Ukraine goes through this transformation, we come back to the same questions: who will rebuild, who will manage, and what kind of country will be instead of Ukraine? Whether it will be a sovereign, independent, and most important, neutral state, or it will be a part of European Union, or it will be a part of Russia, or it will be a part of Eurasia. Remember, I told you that in 21st century, to stay non-aligned is a luxury. Nobody can be allowed to stay non-aligned. You, as George Bush said, you either with us or you with terrorists. From this point, from this very sentence, this actually set the rhythm for the 21st century. The West will try with force, or with soft power, or with the hard power, to compel most of the countries to be on its side. But from the other side, we have the Euro-Asian bloc, which is the global East, which includes India, huge country with huge potential, Russia, China, which still not yet said its word. This is a Confucian philosophy: wait and see. If you don't know what to do, don't do nothing. This is a Confucian Chinese philosophy. And
Iran also doesn't have.
Iran also became part of BRICS. Egypt. So now we also witness some kind of disintegration of Middle East. Iran and Egypt already chose their sides. They are with the Euro-Asian bloc. BRICS, it's an essential part of Euro-Asian bloc. And what we witness is the world from multipolar again becomes bipolar. However, these two polars are much bigger, much more powerful than during the Cold War. And it's not about ideology. It's not about solely religion. but it's about civilization. Huntington was right. This is the clash of civilization. And whether you choose or not on which side you are, civilization will decide for you.
Well, so Ukraine and I guess Israel is the spark. We haven't seen the flames and the fire yet, as far as I'm understanding. But obviously, everything that you have shared with us bring us to this small yin and yang symbol from the Eastern philosophy, and that everything is white and black, and there is some black in the white and some white in the black. We have done like an hour and a half. There are a lot of things that I want to ask. I have more questions, but it will be too long for our viewers and for us also. I truly believe and hope that next time when you're in Bulgaria, we will be able to make other conversations. I have already see different questions from different perspectives. Thank you very much for this.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Уважаеми зрители, надявам се и на вас да ви е било интересно. Надявам се, че не само интересно, някакси отрезвително сте имали възможността да чуете човек, който сам нарече себе си и който е сам по себе си изследовател. Той е учен, който говори с фактите, такива каквито са. Заключенията правим сами за себе си. И бяхте с предаването конкретно. YouTube каналът е на Поглед.info. Аз съм Георги Стамболиев.